Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into one of the most fascinating narratives from the ancient world. We're looking at the escalating courtroom drama of John chapter 9. You see, what we're unpacking today isn't just a simple story about a healing. It's actually a full-blown religious and social investigation. We're going to examine a miraculous event that literally puts an entire belief system on trial, forcing everybody, from the local neighbors all the way up to the highest religious authorities, to confront something they just completely cannot explain. Section 1. The miracle at Siloam. Let's just dive right into the inciting incident here. Jesus and his disciples are walking along, and they encounter a man who has been blind since birth. And keep in mind, this isn't some minor temporary issue we're talking about. It's a lifelong, undeniable condition that everyone in his local community is very, very aware of. Now, the disciples immediately ask a question that perfectly captures the worldview of the time. They ask if this physical ailment is a direct punishment for a specific sin. They're basically looking for someone to blame, right? But Jesus flips this completely on its head. He tells them that neither this man nor his parents sinned. Instead, he completely reframes this lifelong struggle as a unique opportunity for God's works to be revealed. What's absolutely fascinating is the highly tactile three-step procedure Jesus uses to actually heal the guy. He doesn't just, wave his hand or speak a magic word from a distance. First, he makes clay with his own saliva. Second, he physically rubs that clay onto the blind man's eyes. And third, he gives him a very specific set of instructions to go wash it off. It's a messy, incredibly deliberate process, and it requires the blind man to actively participate in his own healing. And the specific location he's told to go to? That matters deeply. The beggar is told to wash in the pool of Siloam, which literally translates to sent. This is a brilliant little detail because it subtly mirrors how Jesus had just described himself moments prior, as being sent by God to do his works while it is day. So the man obeys, washes, and comes back seeing. The miracle is complete. Section 2, the interrogation begins. This kicks off the first phase of our legal thriller. The undeniable physical fact of this healed man walking around his neighborhood starts to completely shatter the worldview of everybody around him. The investigation is officially underway. This sequence right here brilliantly illustrates the chain of custody of the miracle. The man doesn't just get to go home and enjoy his new eyesight. Oh no, he is instantly bounced from his super confused neighbors straight into a mounting religious investigation with the Pharisees. Then his parents get dragged into it, and finally he has to face a second, much more intense round of questioning with those same religious leaders. Let's look at the neighbors first. They are experiencing such intense cognitive dissonance that they can't even agree if they're looking at the same guy. Some are asking, wait, isn't this the guy who sat and begged? While others are literally saying, no way, it just looks like him. The man actually has to repeatedly confirm his own identity, which prompts them to demand to know exactly how his eyes were opened. He's forced to explain, step by step, what Jesus did to him. Well, the neighbors have absolutely no idea what to do with him, so they bring the man to the Pharisees. And because the healing involved making clay on a day of rest, the religious leaders immediately focus on the rule-breaking rather than, the incredible miracle itself. To them, Jesus simply cannot be from God because he didn't keep the Sabbath. Although it's worth noting the text points out a deep division among them, as some of the leaders rightly ask how a mere sinner could possibly perform such spectacular signs. Section 3. Fear and the Parents. Unable to reach a consensus, the Pharisees realize they need more evidence, so they escalate the investigation by calling in the man's parents to verify his original blindness. They are essentially putting this family on the witness stand. The parents quickly confirm the basic facts of his birth. Yep, he's our son, and yes, he was definitely born blind. But when it comes to the miracle itself, they completely distance themselves. They absolutely refuse to explain how he sees, simply telling the Pharisees, look, he is of age, ask him. They take the entire burden of testimony and push it squarely back onto their newly healed son. So you might be wondering, why on earth do they react this way? Well, it all comes down to one thing: the threat. The religious leaders had already formally agreed that anyone confessing Jesus was the Christ would be put out of the synagogue. Just like today, the fear of being canceled or completely ostracized by their community was so incredibly strong that they chose to protect their social standing rather than defend the miraculous truth of what happened to their own flesh and blood. Section 4. The beggar's defiance. With the parents refusing to testify and totally dodging the questions, the Pharisees haul the beggar back in for a heated second round. They demand that he give God the glory and officially declare that Jesus is a sinner. But the beggar responds with this famously undeniable defense. Whether he is a sinner or not, I do not know. One thing I know, that though I was blind, now I see. I mean, it's a brilliant legal maneuver, right? He completely refuses to engage in their high-level theoretical theology debate, and instead he rests his entire case on his own unassailable lived experience. They can argue religious law all day long, but they literally cannot argue with his functioning eyes. As the Pharisees desperately press him on the exact healing method yet again, asking him what he did, this previously marginalized beggar gains an unbelievable amount of confidence. He actually delivers this brilliantly defiant and sarcastic counterinterrogation, asking them if the reason they want to hear the story again is because they want to become disciples of Jesus too. It's amazing. This uneducated beggar completely dismantles the highly educated leader's logic. They claim to be Moses' disciples and proudly state they have no idea where Jesus is from. The beggar points out the sheer absurdity of this. Jesus opened his eyes, a medically impossible feat, yet they don't know where he's from. He argues a basic theological point that God only hears those who do his will, noting that since the world began, a miracle like this has literally been unheard of. And he leaves them with a bulletproof conclusion. If this man were not from God, he could do nothing. And how do you think the authorities respond to this flawless logic? With a vicious ad hominem attack, of course. Furious at being lectured by someone they deem entirely beneath them, both socially and spiritually, the Pharisees abandon their investigation altogether. Having completely lost the argument, they just use their raw power and forcibly cast the man out into the street. Section 5. Sight versus blindness. Now we've reached the climax of our explainer. Let's dive in as Jesus seeks out the newly exiled man and reveals the profound, ironic truth underlying this entire courtroom drama. Jesus actually hears that the man was cast out, and he specifically goes out of his way to find him. He asks, "Do you believe in the Son of God?" The man, who is clearly still seeking, asks who he is so that he may believe. Jesus then reveals that he is the one talking to him. Instantly, the man says, "Lord, I believe," and worships him. The man's incredible physical healing has now culminated in complete, total spiritual sight as well. And this beautifully illustrates the core irony of everything we've looked at today. The beggar started out completely physically blind, but through this intense investigation and his personal encounter with Jesus, he gained ultimate spiritual sight and belief. On the exact opposite side of the spectrum, you have the highly educated, physically sighted religious leaders who somehow remained totally, hopelessly, spiritually blind to the absolute truth standing right in front of them. Jesus summarizes this entire narrative perfectly with a really powerful verdict. He says, "For judgment I have come into this world, that those who do not see may see, and that those who see may be made blind." He's declaring that his presence brings sight to those who know they are in the dark, but it actively exposes the blindness of those who stubbornly claim they already see everything. When the Pharisees overhear this, they get defensive and angrily ask, "Wait, are we blind also?" Jesus basically reminds them that claiming to see while remaining deeply arrogant only keeps us stuck in our sin. Which leaves us with this final, truly provocative thought to ponder today. What truths are you blind to simply because you are absolutely convinced you already see? It's an incredible story of sight, stubbornness, and truth. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer.